Obedience tastes like dust and iron. It is the flavor of the water from the purifiers, the grit that settles on your tongue in a collapsed tunnel, the rust you wipe from the barrel of your rifle. For years, I thought I was free of that taste. I thought being a raider meant you spat in the face of obedience, that you made your own laws with blood and fire. I was a fool. I did not know what a real master looked like. I had only ever known petty tyrants and screaming warlords. I had never met a god. And gods, I have learned, do not need to speak to be obeyed. Before the kid from the vault, my world was small, but it was mine. Megaton was a cage, sure. A rusted metal womb built around an unexploded promise of annihilation. But it was a familiar cage. I knew its rhythms. The whine of Moriarty's saloon sign, the clank of the guards on the walkway, the hiss of irradiated water being boiled clean by Walter. I knew the faces. Lucy West, trying to hold onto a world that died 200 years ago. Mr. Berg, a snake coiled in a clean suit, whispering poison into any ear that would listen. And me, I was Jericho, the ghost at the feast, the retired monster everyone kept at a respectable distance. They knew what I was, what I had done. My reputation was a wall around me, thicker than the scrap metal that held the town together. It kept me safe, and it kept me alone. I spent my days cleaning my rifle, smoking my last cigarette down to the filter, and watching the gate. The gate was the only interesting thing in that whole scrap heap. It was the border between the world I knew and the one I remembered. Caravans came and went. Scavengers dragged in their hauls of broken technology and pre-war junk. Sometimes, a new face would appear, blinking in the harsh sunlight, and you could see the Wasteland had already taken a piece of them. They were running from something, or to something, but it was always the same run. Survival, a miserable, dirty business. I was done with that business. I had traded the thrill of the raid for the certainty of a roof and a semi-regular supply of whiskey. It was a bitter trade, but I was getting old. The fire in my belly had cooled to a dull ember. I told myself I was content. I lied. Every time I saw a caravan master with a full pack and a good gun, I felt the old itch, the desire to take, to dominate, to feel the world bend to my will again. But I was tired, so very tired, and so I sat, and I watched, and I smoked, and I waited for nothing at all. Then the kid came. He walked through the gate like he owned the place, which was the first strange thing. Most newcomers shuffle in, heads down, trying to look like they are not worth the trouble of robbing. Not him. He had a straight back and a steady gaze. He wore a blue and yellow jumpsuit with the number 101 stitched on the back, clean as the day it was made. He was a vault dweller, a unicorn, a walking myth. We had all heard the stories, but to see one in the flesh, it was like seeing a ghost from the old world. He had no dirt on him, no scars. His eyes were clear, not clouded with the radioactive haze that filmed the vision of every other soul in this miserable land. He did not speak, not to Lucas Sims, who greeted him with that folksy, overbearing charm. Not to anyone. He just looked. He tilted his head, a gesture I would come to know and dread, as if he were listening to a sound no one else could hear. Then he started moving. He walked the entire perimeter of the town, his hand brushing against the corrugated metal walls. He climbed the highest walkways, staring out at the blasted landscape. He went into every shack, every hovel, every business. He did not ask permission. He just entered. He would stand in the middle of a room, silent, for a full minute, that head tilt thing happening again, and then he would leave. The strangest part was that no one stopped him. Not the guards, not the homeowners. It was like he was invisible, or perhaps like he was so out of place that our brains simply refused to process him as a threat. He was a glitch in the reality of Megaton. He moved with a purpose that was both absolute and completely alien. I watched him from my usual spot near the entrance to my hovel. I watched him approach Burke in the saloon. I saw the snake lean in, whisper his venomous little plan about the bomb. I saw the kid just stand there. No reaction, no shock, no greed, no fear. He just stood. Burke talked, and the kid stood. Then, after a long, uncomfortable silence, the kid turned and walked away. He went straight to the sheriff. He did not say a word. He just stood in front of Sims until the sheriff, looking confused, finally asked what he wanted. The kid just pointed. He pointed a single, steady finger toward the saloon, toward Burke. Sims got the message. I saw him confront Burke. I saw the gun come out. I saw Burke shoot the sheriff in the back, and then I saw the kid move. It was not human. One moment, he was standing by the bar. The next, Burke was on the ground, a hole neatly punched through his forehead, and the kid was holding a pistol that had not been in his hand a second before. There was no flash of movement, no blur. It was a jump cut, a broken piece of film. He was here, then he was there. The target was down. It was clean, efficient, and utterly terrifying. He had not moved like a man. He had moved like a thought. That should have been my warning. That should have been the moment I wrote him off as something unnatural, something to be avoided at all costs. But I saw something else. I saw power. I saw a tool. I saw a way out of my cage. I saw a return to the world I missed. But this time, I would be riding shotgun with something that could not be stopped. The greed, the old hunger, it was stronger than the fear. I approached him later, after the mess was cleaned up and the town had settled into a shocked stupor. He was tinkering with the sheriff's busted protectron. He had a pile of scrap metal and wires next to him, and he was working with a focused intensity that was unnerving. "Good work with Burke," I said. My voice sounded loud in the quiet space around him. He did not look up. He did not acknowledge me at all. He just kept working, his fingers moving with impossible speed and precision. "You're from a vault," I stated. It was not a question. "Heard you're looking for your old man." Nothing. Not a flicker. It was like talking to a wall that was currently rewiring a combat robot. "The Wasteland is no place for a kid on his own," I pressed on, my voice taking on the old cadence of a deal being made, of a trap being set. "You need someone to watch your back, someone who knows the terrain, someone who knows how to kill." He stopped working. He set down a wrench, the metallic click echoing in the silence. He turned his head and looked at me. It was the first time he had really looked at me. His eyes were empty. Not stupid, not vacant, just empty. Like two clean windows looking out onto nothing. There was no personality there, no soul, just an unnerving, analytical calm. He looked me up and down. His gaze lingered on my rifle, on the scars on my arms, on the pack of cigarettes in my pocket. It was not a judgment. It was an assessment. He was weighing my value. He was calculating my utility. I felt like a piece of gear in a merchant stall. Then he reached into a pouch on his belt and pulled out 1,000 caps. He held them out to me. The message was clear. It was not a partnership. It was a transaction. I was being hired. My pride bristled. I was Jericho, a legend among raiders. I was not some cheap mercenary. But the caps were a key to a door I desperately wanted to open. I took the money, and I tasted dust and iron. The first few days were a blur of violence and confusion. We left Megaton without a word to anyone. The kid just walked to the gate and I followed, a few paces behind, like a trained dog. He moved with that same relentless purpose, heading east. He never checked a map, never hesitated at a crossroads. He just knew. It was like he was following a path that only he could see. The silence was the hardest part. I was used to the banter of a raid, the shouted commands, the screams of the dying. It was a symphony of chaos. With the kid, there was only the crunch of our boots on the gravel, the whisper of the wind through the skeletons of old buildings, and the rhythmic, maddening sound of his crouching. Every 3 seconds, like clockwork, he would be walking, then suddenly, he would drop into a low crouch. His head would scan the horizon, left, then right, a beat of silence. Then he would stand up and continue walking. 3 seconds later, crouch, scan, stand, walk. It never stopped. On open roads, in tight corridors, in the middle of a firefight. Crouch, scan, stand. I asked him about it the first time. "What are you doing?" No answer, just the crouch, the scan, the stand. "You see something?" I tried again, my hand tightening on my rifle. "Raiders? Mutants?" He just kept walking. The sequence repeated. Crouch, scan, stand. After the 10th time, I felt a knot of irritation tighten in my gut. After the 100th time, it was a hot spike of rage. After the 1000th time, it was just a part of the rhythm of the world, a new, insane law of physics that I had to accept. The sun rises in the east, rad scorpions are bastards, and the kid from the vault crouches every 3 seconds. Then we ran into our first real trouble. A pack of raiders holed up in an old elementary school. I knew the type. Desperate junkies with pipe guns and bad attitudes. A messy fight, but nothing I had not handled 100 times before. I took cover behind a rusted-out car, ready to lay down some covering fire to work as a team. "I'll take the ones on the roof," I yelled. "You flush them out from the front." The kid did not respond. He did not take cover. He just stopped, right in the open. The raiders started screaming, firing their pathetic little guns. Bullets whizzed past him, kicking up dust at his feet. He did not even flinch. He just stood there and raised his arm, the one with the big, bulky device strapped to it. The Pip-Boy. And the world stopped. It did not slow down. It stopped. A bullet, fired from a raider rifle, hung in the air 10 feet from his face. A plume of dust from a near miss froze in a perfect, intricate cloud. A raider on the roof, mid-scream, was a statue of hate, his mouth open, his spit hanging in a frozen arc before his lips. The only sound was a low, electronic hum that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The light shifted, taking on a sickly green tint. Everything was cast in lines of faint, glowing green energy. I was frozen too. I could not move. I could not breathe. I could only watch. My mind was screaming, trying to make sense of the impossible tableau in front of me. This was not real. This could not be real. The kid was the only thing that could move. But it was not natural movement. It was slow, deliberate, like he was dragging his limbs through thick tar. He raised his pistol. His head turned, but his body did not. A green targeting reticle appeared in the air, hovering over the head of the raider on the roof. A number appeared next to it. 95%. He shifted his aim. The reticle moved to the raider's chest. 95%. To the leg. 80%. The arm. 80%. The gun. 50%. It was a calculation. A cold, brutal equation of violence. He targeted the head. Then his arm twisted, impossibly. His elbow pointed forward, his wrist bent back at an angle that would have shattered the bone of any normal man. He aimed at the second raider, the one behind the sandbags. Another green reticle. Head, 95%. He did it again. A third raider, peeking out from a broken window. Head, 95%. Then he lowered his arm, and the world snapped back into motion. There were 3 distinct sounds, so close together they were almost one. A crack, a crack, a crack. The frozen bullet finished its journey and slammed into the car next to me. The raider on the roof, his scream cut short, simply ceased to exist from the neck up. A fine red mist replaced his head. The one behind the sandbags collapsed without a sound. The one in the window fell backward, out of sight. It was over. 3 shots, 3 kills. It had taken less than a second of real time. But I had seen it. I had been trapped in that frozen, green-lit moment of eternity with him. I had seen the impossible geometry of his body, the cold, calculating numbers hanging in the air. I threw up behind the car. I emptied my stomach, my body shaking uncontrollably. It was not the gore. I had seen worse. I had done worse. It was the wrongness of it, the sheer, utter violation of reality. Violence was supposed to be chaotic, messy, desperate, a struggle between 2 living things. This was not a struggle. This was pest control. It was the dispassionate act of a god erasing a mistake. The kid walked over to the bodies. He did not check to see if they were dead. He knew they were. He just started looting them. He took their guns, their ammo, a few caps. He also took their bent tin cans, their empty bottles, a scorched book, a pack of cigarettes. He took everything. His pack was already bulging, but he kept stuffing more junk into it. He walked over to me. I was still on my knees, wiping my mouth with the back of my hand. He stood over me, that blank, empty gaze fixed on me. He did not ask if I was okay. He did not say a word. He just opened his Pip-Boy. A list appeared on the screen. I could see my name. Jericho. He tapped it. Another menu opened. He scrolled through a list of items. Scrap metal, bent tin cans, pre-war money. He selected a stack of 50 bent tin cans and, with another tap, they were gone from his inventory. And I felt a sudden, inexplicable weight in my own pack. I looked at him, my eyes wide with a new kind of horror. He had just given them to me, without speaking, without physically handing them over. The items had just teleported from his conceptual space to mine. He was not a partner. He was not even a leader. He was a user, and I was not his companion. I was his inventory. The days that followed fell into a nightmarish routine. We walked. He crouched. We encountered enemies. The world would freeze in a wash of green light. Limbs would contort. Heads would explode in slow, graceful arcs of blood and bone. Then the world would restart, and the kid would meticulously pick the battlefield clean of every last piece of useless junk. My own pack grew heavier and heavier, filled with scrap metal, lawnmower blades, surgical tubing, and an impossible number of bent tin cans. My shoulders ached, my back screamed, but I could not refuse. I never tried, not really. How do you say no to the man who can stop time? We moved through the ruins of DC, a place I had only ever skirted the edges of. It was a hellscape of shattered concrete and twisted rebar, populated by things that defied reason. Super mutants, hulking green behemoths of muscle and stupidity, patrolled the streets. They bellowed challenges, fired their heavy guns, and died in the same silent, green-lit instant as everyone else. Their massive heads would pop like overripe melons, their bodies collapsing into limp, heavy piles. The kid would then spend 10 minutes meticulously gathering up their nail boards and sledgehammers. We delved into the metro tunnels. a maze of darkness and decay, home to feral ghouls. Those were worse in a way. They were once people. You could see it in their faces, twisted masks of agony and hunger. They would swarm us, their moans echoing in the claustrophobic tunnels. And the green light would flash, time would stop. The kid's shotgun would appear in his hand. A leg would be targeted, then another leg, then a head, then the next ghoul. Leg, leg, head. It was a pattern, a brutal, efficient algorithm for dismemberment. When time resumed, the tunnel would be filled with crawling, crippled ghouls, dragging themselves forward with their arms, their legs reduced to bloody stumps. The kid would then calmly walk up to each one and put a single, final bullet in their head. He never wasted ammo. He never showed emotion. It was just processing. And through it all, the radio played. The kid had it on constantly, a tinny, cheerful voice cutting through the horror. 3 Dog, the voice of the capital Wasteland. At first, it was a comfort, a human voice in the oppressive silence. He played good music, old songs from a world that had not yet burned. But soon, the radio became its own special kind of torture. Because 1 dog ain't enough, and 2 is too low, it's me. 3 Dog, oh woo! He would say the same things, over and over. He would tell the same stories about the kid, my kid. He called him the lone wanderer. He would praise his heroism, his selfless acts. He talked about how the kid had disarmed the bomb in Megaton, how he had helped the people of Gerdeshade, how he was fighting the good fight against the Enclave. It was a lie. Or not a lie, but a misinterpretation so profound it might as well have been. The kid was not a hero. He was not selfless. He was a force of nature. He did not help people out of kindness. He helped them because they had a little icon floating over their heads. He helped them because they gave him experience points, or good karma, or a unique weapon. It was all a transaction. Everything was a transaction. And 3 Dog's voice, that booming, cheerful, endlessly repeating voice, was the soundtrack to my damnation. Every time he howled, "Oh!" a part of my soul shriveled and died. I heard it in my sleep. I heard it in the frozen green moments of VATS. It was the anthem of the loop, the theme song of my personal hell. One day, deep in a metro station, surrounded by the twitching bodies of crippled ghouls, weighed down by 200 pounds of scrap metal, I finally snapped. 3 Dog's voice crackled from the Pip-Boy. And now, a little something from the ink spots to remind you that maybe the world ain't so bad after all. Turn it off, I snarled. My voice was a raw, ragged thing. The kid did not look at me. He was busy pulling a plunger out of a broken toilet. I said, "Turn that damn thing off," I shouted, my voice echoing in the tiled station. He stopped. He turned to face me. That same blank look. He tilted his head. I could almost hear the gears turning in his head, processing my outburst. Was this a bug? An unexpected variable? "I cannot take it anymore," I said, my voice dropping to a desperate whisper. His voice, the same songs, the same jokes. It is like the world is broken, like it is a record skipping on the same damn groove, over and over. The kid just stared at me. Then he did something that surprised me. He opened his Pip-Boy. He navigated to the radio tab, and he turned it off. Silence. Blessed, absolute silence. For the first time in weeks, the only sound was the dripping of water and the distant moans of a ghoul we had missed. I felt a surge of something. Victory. Relief. I had made him do something. I had asserted my will. I was not just an object. I was a person. The feeling lasted for about 5 seconds. Then he turned the radio back on. "Read, dog, Oh, whoa. Coming at you live from my fortified bunker in the heart of DC. I just stood there. The weight of the scrap metal on my back suddenly felt 1,000 times heavier. It was not a punishment. It was not malice. It was worse. It was indifference. My outburst was a piece of data he had processed and discarded. The radio was the optimal choice. It provided a buff, a piece of information, a mood setting. My comfort was not a factor in the equation. I did not say another word. I just shouldered my impossible burden and followed him into the darkness, the cheerful voice of the apocalypse mocking my every step. I started to watch him more closely after that. I tried to understand the system that governed him. I was a raider. My whole life was about finding the weakness in a system, the crack in the wall, the flaw in the plan. There had to be a logic to it, even if it was an insane one. I noticed the way he healed. We would be in a firefight, bullets tearing through the air. He would get hit. I would see the blood spray, the fabric of his vault suit tear. He would stumble, grunt in what might have been pain, but was probably just a pre-recorded sound effect. A health bar I could not see would be dropping. Then he would duck behind cover. The world would not stop this time. He would just open his Pip-Boy. I would hear a series of rapid beeps, the sound of a Stimpak injector hissing, the sound of water being drunk, the sound of food being eaten, even though he never actually put anything in his mouth. He would eat 20 boxes of stale sugar bombs in 2 seconds. He would drink 10 bottles of irradiated Nuka-Cola. He would inject 5 Stimpaks directly into his chest. And then he would stand up, the bullet holes in his suit still there, but his body perfectly fine, healed. It was a mockery of life and death. I had seen men die from a single, well-placed shot. I had seen others linger for days from a gut wound, screaming for their mothers. For the kid, injury was just a temporary status effect, a debuff to be cleared. Death had no meaning for him. I saw him die once. We were fighting a super mutant behemoth in the ruins of a library. A true monster, 20 feet tall, wielding a fire hydrant on a chain. It swatted the kid like a fly. I saw his body go flying, limp and broken, and smash against a concrete wall. He was dead. There was no question. His neck was at an impossible angle. He was not moving. I froze. My first thought was not grief. It was a cold, sharp panic. What now? I was alone. My meal ticket, my shield, my God, was dead. The behemoth turned its attention to me. I raised my rifle, my hand shaking. This was it. This was the end. And then the world went black. Not a fade to black, a hard cut. One instant, I was facing a behemoth. The next, there was nothing. No sound, no light, no sensation. I did not even feel like I was floating. I just was not. Then, just as suddenly, the light returned. I was standing in the exact same spot. My rifle was raised. The behemoth was there in the middle of the library, but it had not seen us yet. It was back in its idle animation, sniffing the air. I looked to my side. The kid was there, standing next to me, perfectly fine. Not a scratch on him. He was crouching. Then he stood up. He had not just healed. He had rewound time. He had loaded a previous save. The world was not real. It was a game, and he was the player. The fight went differently the second time. The kid knew the behemoth's attack patterns now. He laid a line of bottle cap mines. He crippled its legs with a missile launcher from a safe distance. He never got hit. It was a flawless run. After the monster was dead, he spent 20 minutes looting its corpse and the surrounding area. I just stood there, my rifle hanging limp in my hands. The revelation was too big. My mind could not hold it. It was like trying to look at the sun. If the world was a game, what was I? Was I a player? No, I did not have a Pip-Boy that could stop time or rewind death. I was not the protagonist. Was I just a part of the game? An NPC? A collection of programmed behaviors and recorded lines of dialogue? The thought was a cold stone in my stomach. All my memories, my rage, my boredom, my brief moments of joy, were they just code? Was my cigarette addiction just a character trait, written by some unseen designer? I pulled out a cigarette, my hands trembling. I needed the nicotine, the familiar burn in my lungs. I needed to feel something real. I fumbled with my lighter. The flint sparked, but it would not catch. I tried again and again. Nothing. The kid walked over to me. He looked at the useless lighter in my hand. Then he looked at the cigarette hanging from my lips. He opened his inventory. He selected a single bullet. He held it out. He was offering me an item. I looked at the bullet, then back at his blank face. He was not offering to help. He was offering to trade my lighter for his bullet, or something. The logic was alien. I shook my head and threw the lighter to the ground. It did not matter. Nothing mattered. He picked up the lighter. It was now an item in his collection. He would probably trade it for a tin can later. We continued our journey. My role as inventory space became more pronounced. He found power armor, heavy, bulky pieces of pre-war technology. He could not carry it all, of course. So he gave it to me. He gave me a helmet, a chest piece, 2 leg pieces, and an arm piece. I was not allowed to wear it. It was just cargo. I was a walking storage container for a suit of armor I would never use. He would talk to people in his way. He would stand before them, and they would spill their guts. They would give him their life stories, their deepest fears, their most desperate pleas for help. They would give him quests. Go here, kill this, fetch that. And he would do it. Not for them, but for the reward. The experience points, the unique hat that gave him a +1 to perception. I watched him deal with the slavers at Paradise Falls. I thought, for a moment, that I might see a spark of the old Jericho. Slavers, scum, the kind of people I used to prey on. Maybe we would wipe them out. Maybe we would free the slaves. The kid walked right up to the leader, a sleazy bastard named Eulogy Jones. Jones offered him a job, capture some VIPs for the slavers. The kid accepted, no hesitation. He took the Megaton, a strange gun that could daze people, and the slave collars. We went to the Temple of the Union, a settlement run by freed slaves. He walked in, found his target, a man named Hannibal Hamlin, and shot him in the face with the Megaton. The man's eyes glazed over. He stood there, docile and confused. The kid slapped a collar on his neck. Job done. He did not just do it for the slavers. He did it for everyone. He would work for the Brotherhood of Steel, then turn around and sell information to the outcasts. He would help the ghouls at Underworld, then murder Roy Phillips for the reward from the bigoted residents of Tenpenny Tower. He had no loyalty, no morality, no ideology. There was only the quest marker, the reward, the optimal path. He was the ultimate mercenary. His only master was the system itself, and I was his accomplice. My hands were stained with the blood of his transactions. I watched him enslave a man. I watched him condemn a community of ghouls to be slaughtered, and I did nothing. I just stood there, holding his extra power armor and his collection of bent tin cans. My silence was my complicity. I tried to leave him once. We were in Rivet City. It was the closest thing to civilization I had seen since leaving Megaton. A massive, rusted aircraft carrier, converted into a fortress town. There were people there, normal people, scientists, doctors, merchants. They had a society, laws, hope, While the kid was off talking to some scientist about water purifiers, I made my move. I walked to the bridge that connected the carrier to the mainland. I did not run. I just walked. I was not a prisoner. He had never threatened me. I could just leave. I got to the middle of the bridge. I could feel the sun on my face. I could smell the river. I was almost free, but I could not do it. Where would I go? Back to Megaton, back to my cage, to sit and rot and wait for nothing. Out into the wasteland alone. I was not the man I used to be. I was old. I was tired, and I was terrified. I had seen what was out there. The behemoths, the death claws, the swarms of ghouls. I had survived them only because I was standing behind a god. Without him, I was just another piece of meat waiting to be eaten. And there was another, deeper fear. The fear that it would not matter. That my freedom was an illusion. What if I was just a program? What if my script was to be his companion? Could I even choose to leave? Or would I walk to the edge of my designated area and hit an invisible wall? Would my programming just reset, and I would find myself back at his side with no memory of ever trying to escape? The thought was paralyzing. The horror of determinism. I was a puppet that had just realized it was dangling from strings, and I did not have the courage to see if I could cut them. So I turned around. I walked back to the ship. I found him in the marketplace, selling a mountain of junk to one of the merchants. He had sold my lighter. He did not even look up when I returned. Of course he did not. He knew I would be back. It was all part of the plan. My descent accelerated after that. I stopped thinking of myself as a person. I was an object, a tool. My purpose was to carry things and shoot at things that the kid did not feel like wasting his own bullets on. I became brutally efficient. I learned to anticipate his needs. I would position myself for a perfect flanking maneuver without being told. I would suppress a target so he could get a clean shot in VATS. I became a better companion, a better program. The green-lit moments of stop time no longer terrified me. They became moments of strange, quiet contemplation. While the world was frozen, I was trapped, a statue of flesh. But my mind was still active. I could not think in a linear fashion, but I could perceive. I would study the frozen scenes, the look of pure terror on a raider's face, locked in that final moment of existence. The intricate, beautiful pattern of a blood spray, hanging in the air like a ruby sculpture. The way a single mote of dust could be suspended in a sunbeam, a perfect tiny planet in a dead universe. I found a strange sort of peace in those moments. It was the peace of utter powerlessness. There was nothing I could do. The outcome was already decided. The kid's arm would twist, the bullet would be fired, the head would explode. My role was simply to bear witness, to be the silent observer of the god's dispassionate work. I began to see the numbers, not literally like the kid did, but I could feel them. I could feel the percentage chance of a hit. I could sense the health bars of our enemies. I knew, with an instinct that was not my own, which ghoul was a glowing one and which was a reaver. I knew the loot tables. I knew that a Deathclaw would likely drop a Deathclaw hand, which was a key component in a powerful melee weapon. I knew that the Enclave soldiers in their advanced power armor were basically walking treasure chests. My own knowledge, my own raider instincts were being overwritten by the logic of the game. I was being assimilated. The human, Jericho, was fading away. In his place was companion_Jericho.x, a bundle of scripts and combat subroutines. My cigarette addiction, the last vestige of my humanity, became a problem. The kid never carried cigarettes. They had no value. They could not be eaten for health. They could not be broken down into scrap components. They were useless, so my supply dwindled. I would scavenge for them, desperately searching every desk, every locker. Finding a pack was a moment of pure, transcendent joy. I would smoke them slowly, hoarding them. Each puff was an act of defiance, a reminder of the flesh. The smoke I exhaled was real. The nicotine buzz was real. It was a sensation that was not on any of his menus. It was mine. One day, we cleared out a nest of fire ants in a place called Grey Ditch. A miserable, pointless little quest to help some kid find his father. After we were done, the kid was off talking to the boy, completing the quest, receiving his reward. I found a pack of cigarettes on a dead scientist. My last one was gone hours ago. My hands were shaking as I lit one up. The kid came back. He stood in front of me. He watched the smoke curl from my lips. He tilted his head. Then he opened his trade menu. He took the cigarettes from me, all 19 of them. He did not give me anything in return. He just took them. I did not protest. I did not say a word. What was the point? They were his. Everything was his. He was the player. I was just a part of his inventory that could walk and talk. I think that was the moment Jericho died. The man I was, the raider, the survivor. He was gone. He had been stripped down, piece by piece, until nothing was left but the function he served. I was a pack mule with a gun. My consciousness was just a strange, vestigial feature of my programming. A ghost in the machine. And the machine kept grinding on. We found his father, or what was left of him. A skeleton in a vault, a recording left behind. The main quest, the whole reason for this insane journey. The kid stood over the bones of his dead father, and I watched him. I waited for some sign of emotion, grief, anger, anything. There was nothing, just the blank, empty stare. He listened to the recording. He got the next quest objective. Find Dr. Lee, go to Rivet City. The marker on his internal map updated. The story moved forward. His father was not a person. He was a plot point. His death was not a tragedy. It was an inciting incident. I felt a strange pity for the kid then. He was a god, yes. He could bend reality to his will. But he was also a slave. He was more trapped than I was. I was trapped in his game, but he was trapped by it. He could not choose to stop. He could not choose to go his own way. He had to follow the quest markers. He had to complete the story. His will was not his own. It belonged to the user, to the unseen player on the other side of the screen, pushing the buttons, making the choices. Who was the real puppet? Me, the NPC who had become self-aware, or him, the protagonist who was not aware at all? We went on. We fought the Enclave. We activated Project Purity. I stood on the bridge at the Jefferson Memorial, watching the giant purifier churn the irradiated water of the tidal basin into life-giving liquid. It was a moment of triumph, the culmination of the entire journey. 3 Dog was on the radio, his voice ecstatic, proclaiming a new age for the capital Wasteland. The kid stood next to me. He looked at the clean water. Then he looked at his Pip-Boy. Quest complete. He had gotten the achievement. Then he turned and walked away. He did not stay to celebrate. He did not wait for the praise. The job was done. He was moving on to the next one. There were still side quests to complete, locations to discover, unique weapons to collect. The game was not over yet, and I followed him. Of course I did. What else was there to do? My script had not ended. My contract was still valid. I followed him back into the wasteland, back into the endless loop of crouching and killing and looting. Nothing had changed. The water was clean, but the world was still broken. The radio still played the same 10 songs. 3 dogs still howled his catchphrase. Raiders still respawned in their camps. Ghouls still infested the metro tunnels. And the kid was still the kid, a silent walking avatar of a purpose I could not comprehend. I am not sure how much time has passed. Days, weeks, years. Time has no meaning in the loop. There is only the now, the eternal repeating present. I am in a tunnel. It smells of damp concrete and decay. My back aches under the weight of 100 pounds of scrap metal and a full suit of T-51B power armor. The tinny sound of the ink spots is coming from the kid's Pip-Boy. I don't want to set the world on fire. He's in front of me. He's crouching. His head scans left, then right. He stands up. He takes 3 steps. He crouches again. There is a ghoul around the corner, a feral ghoul reaver. I know this. I do not know how I know, but I do. It has 450 hit points. It has a high damage resistance. It is resistant to radiation. The optimal strategy is to cripple its legs with a shotgun, then switch to a combat rifle for headshots. The kid knows this too. He stands up. He pulls out his shotgun. He turns the corner. The world freezes. The light turns green. The low hum fills the air. I am a statue again, a witness. I watch his arm twist. I see the green reticle appear over the ghoul's leg. 95%. Another reticle on the other leg. 95%. A final 1 on its head. 75%. It is a perfect, calculated sequence. The outcome is assured. I close my eyes. I do not need to see it. I've seen it 1,000 times before. I focus on the one thing that feels real. The dull ache in my molars. The phantom craving for a cigarette I will never have. The feeling of the heavy, useless junk pressing down on my spine. I am Jericho. I am a companion. I am a container. My purpose is to carry the weight. The world snaps back to life. The sound of the shotgun blast echoes through the tunnel. I open my eyes. The ghoul is a twitching, dismembered heap on the floor. The kid walks over and retrieves the shotgun shells from the corpse. He loots a single tin can. He turns to me. He opens his Pip-Boy. He transfers the tin can to my inventory. The weight on my back gets a little heavier. He turns and continues down the tunnel. I follow. What else is there to do? The script must be followed. The loop must be closed. Or perhaps it never closes. Perhaps it just goes on forever. An eternity of tunnels and ghouls and the weight of bent tin cans. An eternity of watching a silent god play his game. An eternity of obedience. That old familiar taste of dust and iron. There are moments of clarity, or what I mistake for clarity. They come when the system glitches. Sometimes an enemy will get stuck on the geometry of a ruined building, running in place against a wall, a prisoner of their own pathfinding algorithm. The kid will stand there and watch them for a moment, head tilted, as if appreciating the broken code, before dispatching them with a single efficient shot. In those moments, I feel a kinship with the stuck raider, the trapped ghoul. We are all just lines of script, and sometimes the script is sloppy. Sometimes physics itself seems to give up. A dead body will get caught on a piece of debris and stretch into a horrifying, vibrating noodle of flesh and bone, its limbs flailing at impossible speeds. The kid will sometimes poke the grotesque display with the barrel of his rifle, seemingly fascinated by the bug. I am not fascinated. I am horrified. It is a glimpse behind the curtain, a look at the raw, unstable engine that runs our reality. It reminds me that the very laws of nature are just suggestions, easily broken, and that our existence is a fragile, buggy simulation. And sometimes, very rarely, he will do something that almost seems human. He built a house once in Megaton. He bought the schematic for a theme, a raider theme. The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. He spent hours in that little shack, not fighting, not looting, just arranging things. He put a skull on a table. He arranged Nuka-Cola bottles in a neat little row. He put a teddy bear in a chair. It was the most unsettling thing I had ever seen him do. It was a pantomime of life, a hollow imitation of domesticity. He was playing house in the apocalypse. What was the purpose? Was there a stat bonus for interior decorating? Or was this a deeper, stranger part of the game I could not understand? A minigame? A side objective? Or was it the player, the entity controlling him, expressing a sliver of its own personality through the puppet? The thought that there was a mind behind the blankness, a ghost in his machine, was more terrifying than the blankness itself. We travel with a dog sometimes, a mangy, scarred creature the kid found in a scrapyard. The dog is, if anything, more of a prisoner than I am. It cannot speak. It cannot refuse. It just follows, its loyalty absolute and unquestioning. It is a better companion than I am. It does not get weighed down by existential dread. It just barks and bites and fetches. The kid seems to prefer its company. He will occasionally stop, and a prompt will appear in the air, one that I cannot see but can feel. Talk to Dogmeat. He will select a dialogue option. You're a good boy, Dogmeat. The dog will bark happily. It is a closed loop of affection, a simple, clean transaction. Good boy, Happy Bark. I have no such options. My dialogue tree is limited and buggy. Mostly, I just repeat the same few lines about my trigger finger being itchy or my desire for a good smoke. The dog is immortal, of course. I have seen it torn to shreds by a death claw, only to limp up to the kid afterwards, whining, and be restored to perfect health. With a stim pack and a pat on the head, he is a part of the player's party. He cannot be allowed to die permanently. It would be an inconvenience. I wonder sometimes if I am the same. If I were to fall in battle, would he simply reload a save? Or am I considered expendable? Am I just a temporary hireling, a piece of gear that can be replaced? I have never been brought low enough to find out. He is too efficient. His green-lit perfection keeps me alive, whether I want to be or not. My survival is not for my benefit. It is for his. He paid 1,000 caps for me. He expects to get his money's worth. We met another one of his kind once. At least, I think he was. We were in the ruins of a collapsed office building. We heard gunfire. Not the usual chaotic spray of a raider, but precise, single shots. We found a man in a strange armored suit, not unlike the kid's vault suit, but a different color, a different number. He was fighting off a pack of ghouls with the same unnatural efficiency as the kid. He did not stop time, but his movements were too perfect, too fluid. He was strafing, circle strafing, his aim never wavering. It was a dance of death, a choreographed ballet of violence. The kid stopped and watched him. He did not help. He did not attack. He just observed. The other man finished off the last ghoul, then turned to us. They stood facing each other for a long moment. Neither of them spoke. It was a standoff between two gods, two players who had stumbled into the same instance. I could feel the tension in the air, the silent communication passing between them. They were sizing each other up, comparing their gear, their levels, their stats. Then, the other man did something strange. He jumped. He jumped up and down, 3 times in a row. It was a bizarre, nonsensical gesture. The kid responded in kind. He jumped 3 times. Then the other man crouched, stood up, crouched, stood up, rapidly. A gesture of frantic, silent communication. The kid did the same. The They were speaking a language I did not know, the language of the players. Then, as suddenly as he appeared, the other man turned and ran off, disappearing into the ruins. He had his own quest to complete, his own path to follow. The kid watched him go, then turned and continued on his way, as if nothing had happened. I wanted to ask him, who was that? What did that mean? But I knew I would get no answer. It was a glimpse into a world beyond my comprehension, a world of servers and players and strange, ritualistic greetings. My reality was just their playground. The moral compass of the Wasteland, as I had known it, was a simple, brutal thing. You had the strong and the weak, the predators and the prey. You had factions, tribes, communities, all bound by their own codes of survival. The Brotherhood of Steel with their technological zealotry, the slavers of Paradise Falls with their simple, cruel greed, the communities like Megaton and Rivet City, just trying to hold on to a shred of the old world's decency. It was a complex, ugly ecosystem, but it made sense. The kid shattered that ecosystem. He was an agent of chaos, but it was a controlled, directed chaos. He rendered all those factions, all those ideologies, meaningless. They were just quest hubs, content providers. He would side with the Brotherhood, not because he believed in their cause, but because they had the best power armor training. He would wipe out the slavers, not for moral reasons, but because the quest to do so gave him a powerful assault rifle. He would murder an entire tower of wealthy degenerates, not out of a sense of justice, but to gain access to a ghoul mask that would make navigating ghoul-infested territory more convenient. He was the ultimate pragmatist. His karma, a concept I could feel but not see, would swing wildly from Messiah to devil, but it did not seem to matter to him. It was just another stat to be managed. If he needed to be a hero to get a discount from a merchant, he would be a hero. If he needed to be a villain to get a unique weapon from a dark-hearted quest giver, he would be a villain. He was a chameleon, a void, a perfect reflection of the system's demands. This, more than anything, is what broke me. My life as a raider had been built on a simple, nihilistic creed. Might makes right. I believed in nothing but my own strength and the strength of my gang. It was a dark faith, but it was a faith. I believed in something. The kid believed in nothing. He had no creed, no philosophy. He was post-ideological, post-human. He was simply an optimizer, and the world was his spreadsheet. I find myself thinking about the bomb, the one in the heart of Megaton, the one Mr. Burke wanted him to detonate. The kid had refused. He had sided with Sims. He had saved the town. At the time, I thought it was a sign of some nascent morality, a flicker of humanity. I was wrong. I understand now. He did not save Megaton because it was the right thing to do. He saved it because the quest reward for disarming the bomb, a house, was more valuable to him in the long run than the quest reward for detonating it, a suite in Tenpenny Tower. A house in a central, friendly location was a more useful base of operations. It was a better long-term investment. He did not save us. He made a sound financial decision. We were not people to him. We were real estate. This cold, utilitarian logic infects everything. When we find a person in need, a settler with a broken leg, a scavenger pinned down by raiders, I feel a flicker of the old instincts. Help them, or, if I am feeling my raider roots, rob them. But the kid does neither. He assesses them. Does this person have a quest? Does this person have a unique item? Can this person be traded with? If the answer to all of these is no, he just walks away. He leaves them to their fate. They are not part of the game. They are just scenery. And he has no time for scenery. I have become scenery. When I am not actively engaged in combat or being used as a mobile storage unit, I cease to exist for him. I will stand in a corner of a room for hours while he tinkers at a workbench, breaking down scrap metal into its component parts, repairing his gear to a perfect 100% condition. He does not speak to me. He does not look at me. I am just another object in the room, like the workbench or the rusty filing cabinet. I have tried to make noise, to cough, to pace. He does not react. I am simply not on his radar. My script is not running. I am in idle mode. During these long, silent waits, my mind turns inward. I try to remember my life before the kid, my life as a raider, the faces of my old gang, the thrill of a real fight, a fight where the outcome was not predetermined, a fight where I could die. It all seems like a dream, a story I read in a book once. The memories are losing their texture, their reality. They are being replaced by the new reality, the green light, the crouching, the endless, identical corridors of the metro. I am losing my own history. It is being overwritten by his. My story is becoming a footnote in the epic of the lone wanderer. Soon, I will have no memories that are not his memories. I will be nothing but the sum of the quests I have witnessed, the junk I have carried, the enemies I have helped him kill. My name is Jericho, I think. I was a raider, I think. I live in Megaton. I used to. Now I live in the space behind him, a few paces back, always. I am a follower. That is my function. The radio is playing again, the ink spots, again. Maybe. A song about hope in a hopeless world. It used to be a comfort. Now it is the cruelest joke of all. There is no maybe. There is only the certainty of the loop, the certainty of the next quest marker, the certainty of the next crouch. The kid stops. He is looking at a door. It is locked. The lock is very hard. I know this. I do not know how I know. I just do. He looks at the lock. He looks at his Pip-Boy. His lockpick skill is not high enough. He cannot open it. He turns to me. For the first time in what feels like a lifetime, he is looking at me with something approaching purpose. He needs something. He opens his trade menu. He scrolls through his inventory. He is looking for something to give me. A piece of armor, a weapon, something that will increase my lockpick skill. No. He gives me a bobby pin, a single flimsy bobby pin. The implication is clear. He cannot open the door, so I must. He's the protagonist, but his stats are not right for this particular challenge. So he will use me, the companion, the tool. He expects me to have a skill that he does not. I look at the bobby pin in my hand. I look at the door. I have never picked a lock in my life. I was a raider. I used explosives. I used brute force. I kicked doors down. I did not fiddle with pins and tumblers. But he expects me to. My programming must include this skill. Somewhere in my code, there must be a subroutine for lockpicking. I turn to the door. I kneel. I insert the bobby pin into the lock. My hands move with a dexterity that is not my own. My fingers know just how much pressure to apply, just how to turn the pin, how to feel for the tumbler setting. It is a mini-game. I can feel it, a delicate dance of pressure and position. The lock clicks open. I stand up and turn to him. I feel nothing. No pride, no satisfaction. I have just performed a function. I have executed a command. The kid walks past me through the now open door without a word. He begins to loot the room. It is filled with pre-war medical supplies, blood packs, stim packs, chems. A valuable haul. I did not get a share of it. I did not get a thank you. I just stood by the door, the ghost of a feeling a distant echo in my mind. the feeling of being useful, the feeling of being used. They are one and the same now. I am beginning to understand the silence. It is not an absence of speech. It is a presence. It is the operating system of this world. Words are messy. They are inefficient. They carry the baggage of emotion, of misinterpretation. The kid does not need words. He has menus. He has quest logs. He has a user interface that is perfectly integrated with his reality. He communicates with the world through a series of clicks and commands. Transfer item. Initiate dialogue. Activate object. His silence is the silence of pure function. And we, the inhabitants of this world, we have learned to speak his language. We respond to his silence. We see him standing there, a blank slate, and we project our own needs, our own stories onto him. We give him our quests, our rewards, our exposition. We fill his silence with our own noise, because the silence itself is too vast, too terrifying to contemplate. We are all just talking to ourselves, and he is the mirror. I wonder what would happen if I just stopped, if I refused to follow, if I sat down in the middle of this tunnel and did not get up. Would he even notice? Or would he just walk on, and I would be left behind, a forgotten asset, until he needed my inventory space again, at which point he would probably fast travel back to me, and I would be compelled by the game's logic to rejoin him. Is my rebellion even possible? Or is it just a dialogue option I do not have access to? We are approaching the surface. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. It means another journey across the blasted open plains of the capital Wasteland. It means more random encounters, more identical raider camps, more of the same. But for a moment, the sunlight is a welcome sight. We emerge from the metro station into the blinding glare of the afternoon sun. The ruins of a city stretch out before us, and in the distance, I see it, a massive, four-legged metal monstrosity striding across the wasteland, a walking fortress bristling with cannons and missile launchers. Liberty Prime, the Brotherhood of Steel's ultimate weapon, a symbol of their power, their ideology, a giant robot programmed to spout anti-communist propaganda while it vaporizes its enemies with a high-powered laser beam. It is absurd. It is magnificent. It is terrifying. The kid looks at it. He has a quest related to it, I know. He will have to help the Brotherhood get it running. He will walk alongside it as it carves a path of destruction through the Enclave forces. He will be a part of its glorious, jingoistic rampage. And I look at it, and I see myself. A giant, walking machine, programmed with a single, overriding purpose, spouting lines of dialogue written by someone else, following a path it cannot deviate from, a tool, a weapon, an asset. The only difference between me and that robot is that I am aware of my own programming, and I am not sure if that is a blessing or a curse. The robot fires its laser. A beam of pure energy, impossibly bright, streaks across the sky and obliterates a distant Enclave outpost. The sound of the explosion rolls across the wasteland a moment later. A low, satisfying boom. Democracy is non-negotiable, the robot bellows, its voice a synthesized roar that shakes the very ground beneath my feet. The kid crouches, scans the horizon, stands up, and we walk towards the wall. I fall into step behind him, my pack heavy, my soul empty. The sun is hot on my neck. The taste of dust and iron is on my tongue. The loop continues. There is no escape. There is only the path forward, laid out for us by an unseen hand. And all I can do is walk it. All I can do is obey.